Hello, everybody. We are live for another Surviving Quarantine by Spreading Live. And I'm excited today that I have Joey with us. And today, me and Joey are going to be discussing grounded in your greatness and the importance of finding what your greatness is and making sure it's not what others' greatness is. But before we get started, I do want to ask you to please continue to like, subscribe, and share because our goal is to bring positivity to your newsfeed and kind of drown out some of those negative things that you might be seeing, a lot of the fear tactics and the scarcity tactics. Let's just have a positive conversation for about 20 minutes. So if you have any comments or questions, also feel free to put them in the chats and we will answer them as well. So let's go ahead and get started, Joey. If you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I am a purpose coach, and that basically means I help people figure out who they are and what they're about, and then how to be more of that. I also host a podcast called What's Your Purpose, where I basically ask leaders that question, what's your purpose? And then we explore how they go about living that. And I live in Northern California with my wife and son.
Awesome. So today we're going to be talking about grounded in your greatness. And before I do these, I always talk with people about, we did that pre-interview. And it's really cool because I just want to hear what you're about and hear what your purpose is and what really makes you. And it was really cool because we were talking about titles and I said grounded in greatness. And you're like, no, your greatness. And I thought that was so cool and how you stopped me on that because it's the truth. And sometimes growing up, we get grounded in others' vision of greatness. And so to get started, why is it important for you to find what yours is?
That's a great question. The basic idea is that that's what we're going to do anyway, because you probably have done this, right? You've gone to take a class or a workshop and you learn a ton of new stuff and it's totally awesome. And you're high-fiving people and you're taking notes and everything is great. And you're like, this is incredible. And you take your notebook, you put it in your backpack and you put it in the back of the car and you never, ever open up that notebook again. Mm-hmm. Even though the instructor was amazing, was great. He or she was incredible in all sorts of different ways. And I did that for, 20 or 30 years through kind of the self-help as grown up. And what I've come to realize, especially after doing purpose work, is that we need to figure out who we are. See, all the instructors out there, they have figured out something about their own purpose, what makes them great. And they have put together systems and programs that work really well for them. And they sell it. And they're really good business people. And so they sell it. And we buy it. And we go, high five everybody. But at the end of the day, all that stuff is based on their purpose and not our own. And so there's a disconnect. And when that disconnect, when we were younger, that disconnect, we could kind of work through it. But now we're more resigned and cynical and skeptical. And that disconnect happens immediately. Mm-hmm. And so rather than trying to figure out what other people are doing, you figure out who you are, what you are about, what you're great at. And then you work on becoming more of that. Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot of baby steps. I call it building your purpose muscles, it's basically every day. How can you be a little bit stronger? I know you're a fan of working out. How can I do a little bit today so I can be a little bit stronger tomorrow?
Mm-hmm. I love two things I hear on that makes me think of situation. One, I heard this saying the other day, just be 1% better every day instead of being like this, everybody's like, let's burn out almost to a point. You gotta be 100% 24/7. So that's my one thought. Then my other one is I literally, before this, I commented on somebody that was talking about millennial generation and asking them, we're about to go in, millennials in essence have had 3 downturns financially. And in these 3 downturns, is there going to be importance on well-being and all this importance? And I paused and I said in my comment was that for me, it wasn't ever a downturn or an adversity that got me it was foundational principles that were my truths and the importance of finding your truths, because like you just said, it's not going to work out. It's going to be another program that's going to be pushed that you're possibly going to fail at again. And then you're going to feed into this failure mindset. And so what are some best tips that you can give to people today about how they can find their purpose instead of it being another get rich quick scheme, which that's not what I'm saying it is, but like just that those schemes and programs that seem that we buy into that may work for the instructor, but not for everybody else.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear. I sell programs too, so I fall into this trap as well. So the way that I'm going to do it is the way that has worked for me, and I think it works for a lot of people, but of course it may or may not work for everyone. The basic idea is that our purpose, it comes from a spirit, a soul, an energy. Maybe it's just the way the human brain and body are wired. Maybe it was there before we were born or after we were born. I don't know any of that stuff, but no matter what, it would have been there when we were young. And so our purpose is in the language that we would have used when we were a young person. It's about love or joy or happiness and excitement, those sorts of words. And my invitation to people, the thing that I think works really well is that you figure out what of those core words, what lands for you. And I have a very simple process to help people figure this out. But when a person lands on their word, whether it be love or joy or happiness, what happens is that they light it up. They smile. Like my purpose is about people being great. And I can't say that without smiling. And what I've come to believe is that's just our inner soul, our inner truth saying like, yes, that's me. And when you land on that, then you can say, okay, I'm about joy. And then you can ask two questions. How can I help myself experience more joy today, or more love, or more happiness, whatever your thing is? How can I help myself experience more of that? And that will give you answers for self-care, like maybe working out or reading a book or talking to a friend or saying, hey, I need help, those sorts of things. And then you can ask, how can I help others experience more of my purpose today? How can I help others experience more joy or love or happiness? And then and you do that because your purpose is always about yourself and other people. It goes, sometimes you have to look at yourself and sometimes you have to look at others, and that just goes back and forth. And honestly, I've learned that more in this downturn, in this quarantine, because I don't know about you, but I'm like, I got to take care of myself. I got to work out, but also I can only think about myself and my woes for so long. Like it just doesn't get answered. Then I got to go help other people. And that's where I find the answers to myself. So it goes back and forth.
I love it. And that's the thing that I like that you do that's different than others is that I always say the success that I've found is it's called the Destiny Ride came up with it, but self-determination theory. So it's autonomy. They got to have the freedom to do it. Competency, they kind of got to know what it is, and it's got to be relatable. In essence, you use that for people to script their own greatness or whatever it may be, their word and their purpose. So what is the importance in people focusing on the determination and being determined for themselves to find it? Like, why should they even care?
Why should they even care? It's a great question. I bump up against this a lot. There's a lot of people who are like, if you ask people like, would you like to live your purpose this life? Would you like to have a life of purpose? A lot of people say yes. A lot of people are like, yeah, that sounds great. I would love that. A lot of people don't understand the work that it takes to put in. Like we're like, yes, I want that. And it's going to be easy. And I actually just did a video on this for LinkedIn just today. Is like, when you wake up, when you know your purpose, and I know I'm about people being great. I can show you all sorts of examples, but a lot of times when you wake up, it's like, crap, I got a lot of work to do. Like I'm behind this. It's not like life is easier. It's just that. But the great part about it is no matter how bad things get, no matter how frustrating or annoying, you're overwhelmed or whatever it is, when you know your purpose, when you're clear on who you are, you can wake up and say, okay, I'm about this. And in spite of all the crud, this is who I am. And then you can go start to take baby steps. And I think what ends up happening is sort of like the compound effect of money. Lots of little investments over time make a big difference. And all the little things that you can do to feed your purpose, to help yourself experience it, to help others. If you can do that baby steps over and over again, after a while, you'll build up this level of confidence where you're able to say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm about. This is how my business is a reflection of that. Here's how we can help you learn about that. But it takes those baby steps.
And it's the thing is finding your process is what we say, is like figuring out what, and even whenever you find your process or your steps or whatever it may be, you're still going to have days that suck.
Totally.
So And even as a purpose coach, that's one thing that I talk to a lot of people. They're like, "You're happy all the time." I was like, "Well, did you not see that video when I told you about all the junk that went wrong?" I was like, "Look," and that's I purposely put up times where it has sucked just so people can go back and see it.
Yeah.
So, what is the importance of a purpose coach to let people know that you're going to have sucky days and it's okay?
Yeah, I think it's super important, not just so much as a coach, but just as people. Like right now, there's so much weight and so much worry and so much concern, and there's so much uncertainty. Right, we don't know what how life is going forward. That we need to be reaching out, and I think a purpose coach, like what I provide for people, and this is something I've learned in my coaching, is that my coaching has gotten actually really simple. I don't give a lot of advice like, oh, you should do this, this, and this. It's a lot of like, okay, you said you're about joy. How can we bring more joy to the situation? How can we
Hmm.
bring more love to your business as a corporate leader? How does happiness show up, and how can you bring more of you to that? Because ultimately, I don't know about you, but I know when I'm in my best self, that's when I'm the most creative, I'm the most determined, I'm the most diligent, I'm the most hardworking. It's the times when I'm not present to who I am. It's when, you know, my ideas are bad and I think everybody hates me and no one likes, it's and all of that stuff runs through your head, which is a very natural part of being human. Our ego takes over and
Hmm.
our ego is trying to protect our true self from being hurt. So he or she is going to have you be anything else besides your true self. And what I've really come to believe is that a purpose coach, and I think really the idea of living your purpose is you have to recognize that we have far more experience being who we think we should be rather than who we actually are.
I heard something today that was it was talking about frustrations. It is faulty reality plus what was it? Faulty reality plus our expectations. Feared expectations equals frustration. So it's whenever we make this world out to it's. They gave the example of I'm turning 30. I'm gonna have the best birthday ever, but you're in quarantine. Like your reality is you can't have that right now. You can't go out and do all these sales, or you can't do what you want to do. So you have a faulty reality with an expectation that you're going to hit this woohoo, this success mark, and so those frustrations come in. And so with that, how do you help people understand clear expectations with a more seen and grounded reality?
It goes both ways. Like in that situation, let's say we're talking to a woman's like, I want to have a 30th birthday party, and we're like, okay, here's the reality. We can't get within 6 feet of each other, but what we can ask is how can we bring, let's just say she's about love, how can we create love for yourself and for other people at this party? And we would start to explore that, and maybe it's a Zoom call, maybe it's going for a hike, maybe there's just a lot of maybes. But
Hmm.
what I find is when I ask how can you help yourself experience love, because I think we're all selfish to a certain degree and we got to take care of ourselves. And if we find that, and then you also ask, hey, how can you bring other people in? That gets kind of the creativity going, and
Hmm.
just kind of like things show up, like solutions to answers show up. And ultimately, what we're doing is just try to get past our ego. Our
Hmm.
ego is saying you need to be strong and funny and determined or whatever it's trying to tell you to be. And you have a lot of experience using it. We've all built up tools based on our ego. And what there is to do is say, okay, I'm about people being great. How can I help myself experience that today? How can I help others? And take those baby steps, build up your muscles, your purpose muscles, so that you can bring more of that to those situations.
Hmm. And I love what you talked about is asking those curious questions that in essence led to a plan A, B, C, D. And like you kept going, basically, I said, thank God for the rest of the alphabet because there's so many times in my life, it's like, I'm doing this and I'm going hard at it. And it's like,
Yep.
whoop, stop, not happening. And the importance of finding pivot points. And I think the curious questions really can help in the pivoting. So, why is it so important to be curious and ask these curious questions so that you can get grounded in your greatness?
Well, when you're curious, and there's actually a book on curiosity, and I forget I read part of it, but I forget the author. Darn it. When you get curious, though, you're fundamentally coming from generally a good place.
Hmm.
Like if you're, if your kid is annoying you, you're not really curious about what's bringing him joy right now. You're like, yeah, yeah," you're like, you're not in a good place. So if you are grounded in who you are, then you can be curious. And the other reason of why why I say you should build up your purpose muscles and build who you up, the more you know, the more clear you are in who you are, the more you can like look to see what you're not.
Hmm.
You can explore. You're like, look, we talked. I do these workouts, which I call grab your junk, which is where I go out to my garage, I grab something, and we do a workout with it. And I did it for 50 days in a row. And the reason I could do that is because I was very clear I am not a physical trainer. Like I actually lost a little weight, so that's good. But there's nothing about me that says physical trainer. But I can go out and have fun with that, play with it, explore it. And that just allowed me to, and it honestly really, really helped me in the first 50 days of our quarantine.
Hmm. And I love that too, that you found what you're good at and you use your strengths.
Yeah.
So I know that we talk, and this is finding what like your word is. What is your thoughts or on the importance of also kind of looking at your weaknesses or at least being aware of them?
Yeah. That the best book I've read on purpose as an example of bringing purpose to a business is Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull. It's
Hmm.
the story of Pixar and
Oh,
how they created Pixar. Awesome book. Pixar's purpose is about people being great. They say we make great movies with great people. That's their motto. And the whole book is a story of how they go out of their way to look at places where they're not great. And Ed talks about this a lot. He says, if you're not willing, you cannot be a great company if you're not willing to look at the places where you're not great. And so, in purpose is very much the same thing. You're saying,
oh yeah.
okay, here's who I am, and this is what I'm about. Here's where I'm living it full out, and here's where I'm not. And there's always going to be places where you're doing great and where you're not doing great in terms of your purpose. Oop, did I lose you? Hello? Oh no, I can't tell. Is this? We are now dancing. I'm not sure if this is me or that or Emily. Please, I hope. Okay, well, I'm going to keep talking. I think Emily froze, but if you have any questions about knowing your purpose, knowing who you are, what you're about, doing any of that kind of thing, let me know. Put a quote down here because Emily's working through some stuff. If you have a question about your purpose right now, put it down. I'll see if I can answer it. And I'll just keep talking here. Let's see. So a few things that you can do to really deepen your sense of your purpose. These are what I call tools, that your exercises to help you expand your sense of your purpose. And first one is you got to be able to share your purpose. My purpose is about people being great. And what that means to me is knowing who you are, having a dream, making things happen, having fun with friends and family, and helping other people. That's my definition of purpose, or sorry, of greatness. And I can share that at any point. It's taken me a few years, honestly, but the more that you can share your purpose, good things happen, because when you share it, you talk about it with other people. The more that you talk about it with other people, the more you learn about your purpose. The more that you learn about your purpose, the more that you can put into action. The more that you put into action, the more results you're going to produce. The more results that you produce, the more you're going to want to use your purpose. So it all goes around. And so share your purpose. Just share it over and over again. I say you should know your purpose so well that you can share it over drinks with friends. That's the That's the first one. The second one is to use those 2 purpose questions that I told you about. And I do hope Emily comes back. And, the second one is that you can, when you share your purpose, you can ask yourself, how can I help myself experience more of my purpose? And how can I help others? And you can ask yourself those 2 questions over and over and over again, and that will help you build up your purpose muscles. Oh, is Emily coming back? Oh, close. And you just keep doing it. And what that does is that helps you figure out what you need to experience your purpose and what other people need, because your purpose is always about yourself and others. Okay, we're just gonna keep going. I think Emily's trying to come back. And all right, third thing you can do to help you deepen your sense of purpose is you need to have a way to get unstuck, because purpose is all about bumping up against limits. You are always going to bump up against limits. You're always going to get stuck. Does not matter how much you know about your purpose, how inspired, aware, whatever it is, you're going to bump up against limits. You might have technical difficulties like we're having today. And so you want to have a way to get unstuck. One way you can do to get unstuck is to ask yourself those 2 questions. If you're experiencing something less than your purpose, you can say, okay, hey, how can I help myself experience more of your purpose? Hey,
who loves bad technology?
I was just giving a lesson on purpose as much as I could. I just kept talking.
Well, I appreciate it. And I see Nathan has asked the comment. I kept trying to come on there. Thank you so much for the continued conversation, and keep going. As I said, Nathan, he asked for you to dance as well. So I don't know if you did that.
I do. I always do a purpose dance. This is what we do when we go live. This is the Facebook live dance, because you never know when you're going live. What was I saying? The last thing I'll say is that when you because purpose is always about bumping up against limits. No matter how much you know about your purpose, you're going to bump up against a limit at some point. And therefore, you need to have a plan, a system, an approach to help you get unstuck, because you're going to get stuck. You might as well plan for it. You can ask yourself, I have 3 methods that I use. The first one is to actually use those 2 questions. How can I help myself experience more of my purpose in this situation? How can I help others experience more? I find asking those 2 questions will provide answers in some way and help you get unstuck in a lot of places. There's 2 other tips that I give in my trainings, but we'll save those for later day.
I appreciate you so much for that too, because I know I didn't get to hear it, but I know I've heard you enough from our prior meeting to know that you have such a heart and a passion for this that makes my heart so happy, and it's good for the viewers. Even in the middle of technological errors, and I am sorry about that. Apparently, I hit a wrong button. And this is the thing is that I love that people give me grace in this. So learning for a long time. And like I said earlier, this is the other reason why I keep content like this on. So later on, whenever you see me doing this later, be like, oh, okay. Do you remember that time whenever she was in the middle with Joey, and Joey totally is such a blessing and went with it? So I'm forever grateful for you.
You have to go back and look. I was just like, okay, it's like a stand-up show. Here we go.
Let's go.
But this is one thing I will say is that the reason I was able to do that is because I've practiced talking about purpose and practiced talking about my thing, a lot. And I think the more that we can talk about our thing and share our thing and practice sharing it, just the better off you are.
I agree. And that's the thing that I always say to be hot. So humble, open, and transparent. And just somebody said the other day is just let your viewers tell you if it's worth it or not. So quit trying to think in our minds if it's but if you feel like something's came to you, you need to say it, just say it. Because even if it affects one person's life, that matters.
Yep.
And it's knowing yourself and knowing, again, what your word is. We've discussed prior that love is mine.
Yes.
And that love is very important for me. And I just love people and love to give information that's inspirational that will lead for transformation. And so I could speak on that all day.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yes.
Since we talked and we identified love, which was already throughout your, so it was not like, I'm curious if anything came up or anything interesting occurred for you just in thinking about that, since you kind of identified that as your purpose.
I think I just found more grounded in it, because I know it's a word that I've always used, and it just gave me more confidence in essence, because I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense. And because love is my word, but it's the meaning of love for me, which is to be patient, kind, honest, and understanding, and not boasting of ill will. And that's to love myself, which is sometimes something I struggle with. And so just digging deep into that and realizing those moments when I'm not doing what I should.
Yeah. Yeah. And then having the grace to be like, wow, I was really not loving myself, and to actually bring love to not loving yourself. Right.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And I love that you actually know what I would call your purpose pillars, those 5 things, what love means to you. Because for all the audience watching this, these words, the love, happiness, joy, these are big, broad words. And what you want to do is define what they mean to you. You've already done that. So it's awesome. And I just applaud you for being able to share it, just rattle it off. I think that's so important. It's something that not enough people do.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'll say that took time, and I'll say Simon Sinek was the first one that got on that purpose side for me. And just, I think when you know your purpose and you can say it every day, you lean into it more.
Yeah.
And so, any other questions or comments while we're listening?
You mean for me or for your audience?
For the audience, sorry. I'm seeing.
Oh, did we just lose again? Oh,
take 20. Hearing none. I'm going to get off of this before I do anything else. Give myself a heart attack, and I'm giving myself grace and love during
grace and love, exactly. And that's the,
we do have one question.
In this time, you got to be willing to laugh at yourself.
Oh, amen to that one. Maria asked, "What would you recommend the first step to find one's purpose?"
Well, there's 2 questions that I ask over and over again. And this is the start of all my programs. So I just want to put that as a caveat. If you ask yourself, when you interact with people, how do you want them to feel? And that will be something like heard, comfortable, safe, inspired, motivated, something in that realm. Then and because our purpose has been with us for a long time, it would have been there when we were young. The first times that we would have interacted with it, even if we didn't know what it was, would have been in the language of a young person. And so you take those words, those heard, safe, comfortable words, and then you say, okay, how would I describe the feeling of that in language I would have used when I was 10, 11, or 12? And you'll end up with a word like love, joy, happiness, excitement. Some freedom is another popular one. And the word you're looking for is it will be grounded in you. It will make you smile, and you'll kind of like light up. You're like, yeah, that's me. It'll probably scare you a little bit too, because you're like, oh, I don't know if I can share that. And that will just be your ego kind of coming through. But that's how I recommend it, because your purpose to me, your purpose is like your eye color. It's not this thing that you have to go find. You just have to know how to figure it out. And then it's just who you are. It's not like, Emily, you're love. And so like, it's not like you became that. It's just who you are. Mm-hmm. And I think all of us have that, and we just have to figure out what that is. So if you ask yourself those 2 questions, chances are you'll find a word, but really go for the word that lights you up. It's words like connected and good and inspired. They're awesome words, but they generally don't light people up. And you want to go for the word that really brings you, makes you smile and brings you energy.
I love it. And as I love, it's my word, as I'm going to say that too. But it's so true. And I'm so grateful for you for coming on and helping people to see that their greatness is theirs and that they need to find it and the awareness of it. I think these are great questions. Would you say serving would be a purpose? When I serve, I feel.
Yeah, so serving is awesome. It's an expression of your purpose. Chances are, and what I would ask that person is, when you serve, when you feel like you're taking care of other people and other people are taking care of you, what's your experience of life in that moment? How do you feel? And my guess is it will be something like love, joy, happiness, excitement. It will be something like that. So how you serve people is a reflection of your purpose. And a lot of people say, well, my purpose is, being a teacher now, or being a parent now, or something like that. And what I come to realize is that doesn't those are awesome, but they don't work as purposes, because you had a purpose before you were a teacher, or before you had kids, or before this bad thing happened to you. It was there already. And so the job that you do, the mission that you take on, what the impact you want to make on the world, is a reflection of your of who you are, but it's not the actual purpose, because it
Mhm.
was there before it is. And then if you quit being a teacher, do you have no purpose? Like, no, you have something. It's just you're not a teacher anymore.
Mhm. And I like that the part that it is the placing the value in yourself and not in your in actions per se,
Yeah.
because um, what we say is like when somebody does something bad, we talk about their actions. Personally, that's what we do, because it's not them, it's not their identity. Where in essence, a purpose is your identity. And
Yeah.
so, whenever we talk about alcoholism or alcohol, like you don't call somebody an alcoholic, you say that they have an issue with alcohol drinking, because whenever you say the words and you speak into them that they're an alcoholic, they're going to identify as it. Or if somebody's obese and you say they're fat, or like there's these things that we're already fighting since we've been children. And so, and that's the essence that you talk about too, is the ego, and making sure you got a lot of tags, like name tags that you've already put on yourself that you probably need to take off.
Yeah.
And you need to figure out what your name tag is that's yours, so that you can get grounded in that greatness that you eventually will
Yeah.
be able to
And
live.
this is what I say is why it's practice. You can put the name tag on, but if if you figure out that you're about joy and you haven't really worn that name tag for a while, and you've talked to people from joy and you figured out how you're good at it and how you failed at it, it just takes practice. And that's the biggest thing. And then one thing I just want to put in, I think it's having purpose based in these core words, this love, joy, happiness, is really helpful now during the pandemic, when everything is contracting. Because if your purpose was, I'm here to elevate humanity, or whatever that is, it sounds great. But at the end of the day, right now, people just don't have the time, the energy, or any the wherewithal to deal with much besides taking care of themselves and their family.
Mhm.
And but when you have a sense of, when your purpose is about joy or love or happiness, you can say, okay, there's not much I can do right now, all sorts of things, but how can I bring joy to my life and my family's life, my friend's life right now?
Mhm.
And no matter how small things contract, you can always ask those questions.
That's awesome. I appreciate you again so much, Joey. This was such
No,
a
thank
great
you.
conversation,
Yeah.
and I can't wait for people to continue to watch this and listen to it, because you definitely hit home on something that seems so grandiose but can be so simple.
Yeah.
And so I greatly appreciate you for that.
Thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time, and for working through your technical issues, or whatever that is.
Well, we will see y'all tomorrow, and I pray that it will not be as technical issues as it was today. So thank you for the grace, and thank you for forgiveness on that one. And tune in tomorrow as we continue this series. And
Awesome.
again, thank you, Joey, for joining us. We'll see
Thank
you
you.
again soon. Y'all have an awesome and blessed day.
Bye, everybody. Be safe.